Welcome to the Explainer. All right, today we're tackling a big one, the Book of Genesis. We're going to break down its structure to really get a handle on why these ancient stories still have such a powerful grip on us.
So let's just jump right in with the big question, right? What gives this book its incredible staying power? I mean, why does a collection of stories about creation, great floods, and ancient messy families still feel so important to us today?
One scholar, R. Kent Hughes, puts it in a way I just love. He says Genesis is way more than a history lesson. He calls it good soul medicine, or strong meat. It's supposed to be challenging and nourishing. Okay, so let's really get into it.
So, the source material we're looking at today suggests thinking about Genesis not as one long, sprawling narrative, but more like a carefully crafted play, a drama in two distinct acts. And honestly, understanding this two-act structure is the key to unlocking the whole thing.
And what's just wild is the difference in scale here. I mean, look at this. Act 1, the primeval history, covers a massive 2,000 plus years, and it's about everyone, the whole human race. Then boom, the camera crash zooms in for Act 2. Suddenly we're only looking at about 300 years, and just one single family.
All right, so let's talk about that first act, chapters 1 to 11. This is the universal stuff, the story of all of us. And it basically gets at 4 of the biggest, most fundamental questions that, we all wrestle with.
First up, creation. How did any of this get here? It kicks off with a story of a world brought into being and declared very good.
But then, right away, we hit the fall. This part tackles that tough question. If things started so good, why is there so much suffering and pain? And it points back to an act of rebellion. Which leads us to the flood. This is where the story confronts the idea of justice, asking, will evil just get a pass? And the answer here is a dramatic no. But it's also, importantly, a story about rescue.
And that brings us to the Tower of Babel, which tries to explain our deep divisions. Why are we all so scattered? Why can't we understand each other? Our source calls this whole arc a journey of widening ruin, a pretty powerful way to put it.
But right here, at this low point of universal chaos, the whole story does a hard pivot. It's like the camera that was way, way out, showing the whole world, suddenly zooms right in on one single man and his family. Let's really look at what this shift looks like.
Yeah, and you can see that dramatic shift laid out perfectly right here. We go from the story of the whole world to the story of one family. From a global, universal scale to a national one, all centered on this guy, Abraham.
Now, according to the scholar Gleason Archer, this isn't just a random story choice. There's a principle at work here he calls the covenant of grace. The idea is that the story is deliberately being narrowed down, focusing God's big plan through one specific family line.
And check this out. This chart just perfectly illustrates that whole process. You can see the pattern, right? At each stage, one line is chosen to move the story forward, and another is, it's set aside. It's this funneling down of a divine promise. From all of humanity to Noah, then Shem, and bam, it lands on Abraham.
So that brings us right into Act 2, and the vibe totally changes. We're not in a huge cosmic drama anymore. Now it's an intimate, sometimes really messy family saga. And it's all about exploring what faith even looks like as it gets passed down and seriously tested over 4 key generations.
So according to our source, each of these 4 guys represents a totally different side of faith. You've got Abraham, his thing is unquestioning obedience. Then you have his son, Isaac, who's more about a quiet, passive acceptance. After him comes Jacob. Oh, he's the struggler, the trickster, the guy who literally wrestles with God before he finally learns to depend on him. And it all wraps up with Joseph, who is the picture of faithful loyalty, even when his brothers sell him into slavery. Talk about adversity.
And here's what's so incredible. These guys are messy. Their stories are packed with flaws and lies and huge mistakes. But through it all, one central theme keeps popping up. God stays faithful to his promise, even when the people carrying that promise seem like the biggest threat to it. They're constantly messing up.
The whole book really builds up to the story of Joseph. It's the climax. I mean, this guy's life is just one disaster after another. He's betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, thrown in prison for something he didn't do, but his story becomes the ultimate example of a divine plan working, behind the curtain the whole time.
And it all comes down to this one incredible line. This is what Joseph says to the very brothers who sold him out. This verse is basically the mic drop for the whole book of Genesis. It's the key theme right here.
that God can take the absolute worst things people do and somehow turn it all around for good.
So, at the end of the day, Genesis isn't just a standalone story about how things started. It's bigger than that. As the scholar J. Sidlow Baxter puts it, it's like the first bookend on a giant shelf. Genesis answers the question, how did all this begin? And in doing so, it sets up the entire story that's answered by the very last book of the Bible, which asks, okay, so how is it all going to end?
Which leaves us with one final big question to chew on. If this ancient text lays out the blueprint for our beginnings, our creation, our mistakes, and the first hints of a rescue plan, what does that tell us about our own ending? Where is this whole human story ultimately going?